Hello, everyone, and welcome to Literary Tales. I'm your host, Paul Krause, and in this episode, as we continue an analysis of Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace, we turn to another great character contrast, that between the two great men, Mikhail Kutuzov and Napoleon Bonaparte. There are many great men or historical figures who appear throughout Tolstoy's work. Many have single appearances, like the Austrian general Karl von Mock. Others appear repeatedly, their shadow sort of hanging over the principal characters in their journeys. Two such great men, of course, stand out and are dialectically contrasted with each other: the French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte and the Russian Field Marshal Mikhail Kutuzov. Napoleon's depiction in the novel varies. When first introduced via discussion at Anna Pavlovna's party, the Russian aristocracy is very much against the murderous and barbarous character of Napoleon. They do not give him his titles and paint him in the very language of negativity. He is called a murderer and villain during the parties. Only the naive Pierre defends Napoleon by way of sleight of hand or a red herring. As Pierre defends Napoleon and the French Revolution, Pierre says, "I am talking about ideas." And the ideas are what Napoleon is praiseworthy for. This is a major theme discussed by Tolstoy, as we pointed out in our character contrast of Pierre and Andrei, the distinction between the realm of fantasy and ideas and the realm of concrete living. After peace between Russia and France at Tilsit in 1807, Napoleon is referred to as emperor and legitimate ruler, only to again be referred to as Antichrist and a murderous villain in his invasion of Russia in 1812. The winds constantly move Napoleon through his characterization by the Russians in the course of the epic. Kutuzov, by contrast, is not depicted as the great hero as much as he is depicted as simply being human. The specter of Napoleon haunts the story and drives the plot externally. Napoleon's invasion of the Holy Roman Empire and Austria at the beginning of the novel brings the Russian army to Austerlitz, where Andrei is wounded. Napoleon's invasion of Prussia brings the Russian army and Nikolai to defeat in 1807. And Napoleon's invasion of Russia is the culmination of all the plot lines and characters of the story, bringing about the death of Prince Andrei at the culling fields of Borodino. But where Napoleon looms over characters as a dark shadow, Kutuzov is a very real flesh and blood officer whom we encounter over the course of the work. While Kutuzov is only depicted alongside Andrei, for the most part, we see a contrast between the two great leaders developed in Tolstoy's novel. Kutuzov is a humane person, a caring and compassionate officer, and interested in the best for his soldiers and his country. On the eve of the Battle of Borodino, Russian Orthodox priests are processing an icon of the Virgin Mary, Mother of God. The soldiers rush to the procession to kneel and cross themselves before their protectress. So too does Kutuzov. Kutuzov's kneeling and crossing himself among the common soldiers shows himself to be no different than the common soldiers employed in his army. In fact, Tolstoy recounts that while some soldiers recognized the general as he kneeled and prayed with them, most didn't take notice of this event at all. It is a very humane and human moment but this human moment was already known to readers from our earlier encounters with Kutuzov in his conversations and genuine interest with Andrei. Andrei, having been his aide, had several discussions with the great general, who spoke and treated Andrei as a friend rather than an instrument of military or political vainglory. During the Battle of Borodino, Napoleon's only moment of humanity is in observing the carnage of the battlefield. Looking over the thousands of dead, including officers he knew, Napoleon was overcome with a moment of sorrow and sadness, the only moment of humanity Napoleon shows in the work. In that moment, his aura of invincibility as a conqueror general was broken, and like Kutuzov before the Theotokos, showed his humanity. At that moment, he felt no longer wanting to march for Moscow, for victory, or for glory. Tolstoy writes of the brief event before Napoleon was snapped back into robotic battle mode upon further news of the development and crisis of the battle unfolding before him. Wherever Napoleon goes, death and destruction follows. Wherever Kutuzov goes, humanity and face-to-face conversation manifests itself. The nihilistic grandeur of Napoleon is precisely that, an empty grandeur with nothing on the inside. The great monuments and armies means nothing to the interiority of the soul. Kutuzov, then, is the only truly great man in the Carlylean sense. Of the great kings, emperors, and generals who dot the novel, who appear throughout War and Peace, it is Kutuzov who shines as an image of love and humanity in a world scarred by mud, horror, bloodshed, and war. And that is the great contrast that Tolstoy paints between the two greatest heroes who are characters in War and Peace. Again, Napoleon is an instrumentalizing agent of destruction and bloodshed. Kutuzov is very much a human individual, despite his medals and rank in Russian society. Kutuzov may be a hero, he may be a great man, but Tolstoy repeatedly shows him as simply being another human being. And in a life marred by war, bloodshed, horror, and the pursuit of glory, Tolstoy is telling us that the greatest heroes are men like Kutuzov, individuals who care about their friends and those around them, men who act humanly and humanely to others. It matters not one's standing in society. Everyone can act like a Kutuzov and not like Napoleon.